What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel. And today I have an updated Arcana Knight deck profile for you guys. Now I know what you guys are thinking, wait a minute, why do an update on the Arcana Knight? Truth be told, there was a few cards that I thought were breaks and I decided to take them out and do a complete 180 on the deck. Now before we get started with this deck profile, I do want to let you guys know that this will be the first of two videos that I'll be posting today. Obviously, this one will be the first one, and the second one will be the results of the Royal Rumble Premium Live event. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you guys don't miss out on that video, because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be fire. But honestly, I'm actually excited for the Royal Rumble, which will kick off the road to WrestleMania. Who knows? I mean, you guys may end up seeing me at WrestleMania for all we know. Who knows? But with that being said, this deck, Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, this deck is about the same as before. I decided to switch it up just a little bit, especially with the extra deck and the side deck. I switched it up completely, and I'm actually curious of what you guys think about the deck. So I will be posting the photo of the deck on my Instagram, so make sure you guys follow me there. Link will be in the description below, and hopefully you guys are ready for this deck profile. If you guys are, and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell. Follow me on all of my social media as well as my Instagram, because I do post the decks there. Links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. If you guys want to send fan mail and you guys want to see me open it up here on the channel, why? Sorry guys, my desk is a little loose. That's why it keeps moving. Anyway, fan mail. Yeah, if you guys have any fan mail that you guys want to send me, and you guys want to see it get opened on the channel, the info will be in the description as well. Let's get straight into it. Kicking things off, obviously you've got the two copies of the King's Knight, Queen's Knight, and Jack's Knight. Obviously these three cards are basically the bread and butter of the whole deck. You're able to basically summon all three at once off of the effects of none other than the Joker Straight, which I will talk about here in a bit once we get into the spells. And not only that, but King's Knight or Queen's Knight plus a tuner, you can instantly make a synchro, which excuse me, which I actually have two synchros in the extra deck, but I'll talk about that once we get into the extra deck. Next up, we have two copies of Arcana Triumph Joker. This card is absolutely insane. I tested the deck using Slifer and Thunder Speed Summon. Excuse me. But the problem is that Slifer and Thunder Speed Summon are both bricks. They're actually both breaks in both bricks, because if you open with Thunder Speed Summon and you don't have a way to summon King's Knight, Queen's Knight, or Jack's Knight, then the card then Thunder Speed Summon is basically a brick. So that's why I chose not to run it. But there is another way you can actually summon Triumph Joker to your board aside from its own effect, which reads, if this card is in your hand or grave, you can send one Queen's Knight, and Jack's Knight from your hand and or face up monster zone to the grave. Special summon this card. This card gains 500 attack times the combined number of cards in both players' hands. You can discard one card, destroy all face-up cards your opponent controls with the same type, monster, spell, or trap as the discarded card. Which it's not too bad. It's a nice little, like, it's kind of like, it's basically Lightning Storm, but you have to discard for cost, which is kind of a downside, but it's still a pretty bomb. It's a pretty bomb-ass card to summon, and it can just become a house, depending on how many cards both you and your opponent have in the hand. Next up, we have 2 copies of Joker's Knight. I know I've seen decks. I know that I've seen some decks run 3 copies, but the reason why I chose to run 2 is because running 3 is a brick, especially just by using its special summon effect. Because with its special summon effect, you have to send one of the 3 knights, Queen's Knight, King's Knight, or Jack's Knight, from your deck to your graveyard and summon it. And what's even more interesting is that if you activate face card fusion and you want to summon Arcana Knight Joker, you can actually use Joker's Knight as one of the materials. So if you send King's Knight to your graveyard to summon Joker's Knight, then Joker becomes King's Knight, and you're able to summon Arcana Knight Joker from there, which is pretty cool. But again, it is a bit of a brick. It is a bit of a brick sometimes if you don't have the correct cards in your hand, in your opening hand. But it's still a pretty decent card, especially if you want to go into a level 8 synchro. It's pretty good. Next up we have 2 copies of Rose Warrior of Revenge. This is probably one of the most hilarious cards in the meta, because this is a card that you don't see all that often anymore, but it's still a pretty good card because its effect reads, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, inflict 300 damage to your opponent. So let's say for example there's a monster that your opponent has on board that has 0 attack, and it's in attack position. Basically, it deals 1600 plus an additional 300, which is a grand total of 1900 damage. That's a pretty nasty card. But because that it's a tuner, this card plus any of the 4-star monsters that you have at your disposal, you can instantly go. You can either A, go into a level 8 synchro, or B, go into a rank 4 exceeds, which I do have the two Time Thief Redoer, which is not bad, but obviously if you're not able to summon Time Thief Redoer, then your biggest odds is to side them out for some of the link monsters that are in the side deck, which again we'll get to that when the time comes. Next up, we have 2 copies of Imperial Bower. This is actually a pretty cool card. So its effect reads: if you control no other monsters, you can tribute this card. Take two different monsters from your deck among Queen's Knight, and or Jack's Knight, and either add them to your hand or special summon them. You can only use this effect once per turn. Another thing that I almost forgot I almost forgot about Joker's Night is that it has a sort of like a really weird like it has a really weird effect similar to Cypher Lord Omega, where if it's in the graveyard with Joker's Night, if this card is in your graveyard during the end phase, ooh, ow. Sorry guys, my neck is stiff. That's what she said. Anyway, bad joke, I know. Where if it's in the graveyard, you can take one of the 3 face cards that they have in your grave, King's Knight, Queen's Knight, or Jack's Knight, take that one card, put it back into your deck, this card gets added to your hand. With Omega, it's pretty much the same, but it's any card. Any card that you have in your graveyard or in your opponent's and you get to shuffle both that one card and Omega back into the deck, and you're able to just resummon Omega right off the bat, which is pretty cool. But with Bauer, he's basically a one card Link 2 or a one card rank 4. So if you tribute off the Bauer to summon Queen's Knight and King's Knight, you can either go into the Time Thief into the Time Thief Redoer. You can go into any of your Link 2s that you may have at your disposal, or if you have let's say Face Card Fusion in your hand, and you have Jack's Knight in your hand as well, you can activate the Face Card Fusion, send King's Knight, Queen's Knight, and Jack's Knight to your graveyard, and then you can summon Arcana Knight Joker to your board, which basically acts as sort of like a Solemn Judgment of sorts, which is not too bad of an effect, especially on a 9-star 3800 beat stick. That's a pretty powerful card. So Bauer is sort of like not a combo starter, but more of a board starter, I guess you could say, which is pretty cool. And then to round up the monsters, we have 2 copies of probably one of the weirdest cards you will ever see. Actually, let me rephrase that. One of the weirdest techs in this deck. I am running 2 copies of Silent Swordsman. Hold on. I know what you guys are thinking. Here's the thing. Wait a minute. Are you talking about the level monsters? No, I'm actually talking about the 4-star monster that was released in I believe Duels Pack Rivals of the Pharaoh, which was actually the second to last Duels Pack before we got into Legendary Duelist, actually. So if you guys have never seen Silent Swordsman before, it's a 4-star. It's a 4-star light warrior with 1,000 attack and defense, and it says that it cannot be normal summon or set. It must be special summoned by tributing one warrior that you have on board, and cannot be summoned by other ways. Once per turn during the standby phase, this card gains 500 attack, in which the attack gain is permanent. It's permanent, so its attack will keep going up and up and up and up each turn, each standby phase, which is absolutely insane. So its attack could go up to 8,000 depending on how long or how short the games go. It could be a very powerful monster. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when a spell is activated, you can negate the activation. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Silent Swordsman monster from your hand or deck, except Silent Swordsman. ignoring its summoning condition. So basically, so if you were to have, let's say you did have the so let's say for example you did have Silent Swordsman on board, and you actually run Silent Swordsman level 3, 5, and 7. Let's just say that you can, if Swordsman were to be destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can automatically summon Silent Swordsman level 7 without using its effect, which is absolutely insane. But what's cool about this is that if you send, let's say, Queen's Knight to your graveyard off of the effects of your Joker's Knight, and you special summon to Joker's Knight, you can tribute off the Joker's Knight, summon Silent Swordsman to special summon the Silent Swordsman. And here's the thing, you never committed to your normal summon. So if you have Rose, Warrior of Revenge in your hand, you can automatically summon Rose to your board, and either A, link them off into a link to, like, say, your Assault, your Nightmare Cerberus, or your Nightmare Phoenix, or you can go into a rank 4 such as the Tithe Redoer, or go into a level 8 Synchro, which could be any level 8 Synchro that you may have at your disposal, depending on its summoning condition, which is a pretty crazy card. So basically, Silent Swordsman is only in the deck as a way to thin your board even more, to go into your link plays, your rank 4 plays, or your synchro plays, depending on what you have at your disposal, which is pretty cool. And then to round up the monsters, we have 2 copies of Ash Blossom and 2 copies of Ghost Bell, obviously because graveyard effects and board effects can be very, very devastating. For the spells, for the one-ofs anyway, we've got the one Called By, the one Harpy's Feather Duster, the one Face Card Fusion, the one Monster Reborn, the one Pot of Avarice. And the reason why I've got Avarice in the main is just in case if you don't have anything and any of the knights to summon off of the effects of the Joker Stray, then Avarice can take 2 King's Knight, 2 Queen's Knight, and a Jack's Knight, put them back into your deck, draw 2, and then normal summon, and then activate Joker Stray, resummon those monsters again, and go into your Arcana Extra Joker, which that and Assault are the only two light warriors that you have in your extra deck, with the exception of the 2 fusions that basically work well with this deck, which is pretty cool. And then also we got the one reinforcement of the army to search out pretty much any warrior that you need for your combo, which is pretty nice. And then we got the 3 copies of Joker Straight. So just like the Joker's Knight, if Straight is in your graveyard, then it basically acts as a Cypher or Omega, where you can add this card to your hand just by taking one of the face cards, putting that one card back into the deck, which is really nice. And then we have the one card that can actually help summon Arcana Triumph Joker, which is known as Royal Straight. Now the thing is that the one card that I mentioned that was a brick, it is known as Royal Straight Slasher, and the reason why I ended up realizing that it's a brick is because of its effect, which reads which reads cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summon with Royal Straight. If you have all Queen's Knight, King's Knight, and Jack's Knight in your graveyard, you can send 5 monsters with different levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 from your hand and or deck to your graveyard, and if you do, destroy all cards your opponent controls. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target up to 3 Light Warriors in your grave, special summon them. You can only use each effect once per turn. The thing is that you need to have all of the different levels 1 through 5 in your hand and in your deck. The problem is that you're not going to be able to get its effect off. So that's why I ended up taking it out, because truth be told, all this is just a 6-star 2400 vanilla monarch basically. That's all it is. So that's why I chose to just take it out and just leave it and just leave it alone. But truth be told, Royal Straight can help summon Arcana Triumph Joker or your Arcana Knight Joker just by tributing off Jack's Knight, Queen's Knight, and King's Knight from your hand or your face-up field. So that's actually pretty nuts, which is pretty nuts. You can even also summon pretty much any monster that actually has the name King's Knight, Queen's Knight, Jack's Knight in its flavor text, which is pretty cool. And then we have 2 copies of Super Poly, and you guys are wondering why the Super Poly. Trust me, once we get into the traps and the extra deck, you guys will understand. You guys will understand why. But moving on into the traps, I actually realized that. Wait, is this fine? Yeah. Okay. Sorry guys, I realized that I actually have a copy of Waking the Dragon. I thought I didn't need it, but I actually realized why. So next up, so truth be told, I'm actually running 2 copies of a very old card called DNA Surgery. And if you guys have never seen it before, it's an old card that I think was released in Pharaoh's Servant back in 2002, 2003. So its effect reads: activate this card by declaring 1 monster type. All face-up monsters on the field become that type. It's a really old school floodgate, but what's cool about this is that this card can help fire off Super Poly. So what this does is if your opponent is playing, let's say I'll say a Shizu tier. Let's say that as a random example, and they attack with their Rukulos or their Kaleidahar or whatever. You can then activate DNA Surgery, or actually, if you have let's say Rose, Warrior of Revenge, and let's say King's Knight on your board, and your Rose is targeted for an attack by your opponent's, let's say Rukulos, because Rukulos is a water. You can activate Super Poly to summon out Guilty Gear Free, the Magical Steel Knight, chain your DNA Surgery, call Warrior, and you can actually send King's Knight and your opponent's Rukulos or whatever other water monster that they have on board, and summon Guilty Gear Free just by also discarding any card that they have in your hand, which could be a Joker's Knight, a Bower, a Joker Straight, or whatever, and basically it stops the attack altogether, which is absolutely nuts. And what's even more cool about Guilty Gear Free is that it's sort of like an Omni negate mixed in with a Cyber Twin Dragon effect where it can attack twice, which is pretty cool. So that's why I've got the 2 DNA surgery in the main is for that reason. It's to stop pretty much any deck that is multi attributed, and it basically just helps enable the Super Poly to summon Guilty Gear Freight, which is pretty nice. But Truth Be Told, Waking the Dragon is also in here as a way to summon out pretty much anything else that you may have at your disposal, which also includes one other monster in this deck. But I'm not going to talk about it until we get into the extra deck. Then of course, and then to round up the traps itself, the whole main deck, we have the 2 copies of Joker's Wild, which really doesn't do a whole lot to the deck. I mean, sure, yes, it can help get out the face card fusion. Yes, it can help get out Joker Stray. But the problem is that for all we know, your Jack's Knight, Queen's Knight, and King's Knight could all be in your graveyard, and you won't be able to summon them. You won't be able to use Joker's Wild's effect. So it's sort of like a break, but you can also actually discard it off the effects of Joker Straight if you only have, as a random example, if you have 1 copy of the 3 Knights in your deck, then Joker's Wild becomes yet another way you can add the Knights back into your deck. And then to round up the main deck itself, we've got the 2 copies of Solemn Warning to round up the main deck. Obviously, Solemn Warning is still a pretty nasty card. Old school, but pretty nasty. Moving on into the extra deck, I'm actually going to go from Link to Fusion just to make things even more interesting. But for the Links, we've got the 1 copy of A Soul, 2 Tales of the Noble Knights. Obviously, I'm not running any equips. Any equip spells, but what's cool about A Soul is that she can basically act as a second Rhoda. Search out any warrior that you may have at your disposal, and then you can just instantly link it off into any of your other links that you may have at your disposal. Which for me, I have the Nightmare package, I've got the Nightmare Cerberus, the Phoenix, the Unicorn, and actually the Nightmare Griffin, which you guys are wondering, why the Nightmare Griffin? Truth be told, it's actually a really great way to reset any of your one-ofs, such as your Harpies Feather Duster, your Pot of Avarice, or whatever. And then you can just reactivate it and just go off from there, which is pretty cool. We've got the Arcana Extra Joker, which is a nice little 2800 beat stick, and then of course we got the Access Code Talker because of the fact that we have a bunch of monsters with different attributes. Excuse me, and Access Code Talker is basically just a board wipe. That's all it is. This card can easily just win games and just go off from there. For the Xyz monsters, we've got 2 copies of Time Thief Redoer, and the Zeus. Yeah, Time Thief Redoer gains materials each standby phase, helps you go into Zeus, and you basically have multiple board wipes during each of your opponent's end phases, which is insane. Insane. For the Synchro monsters, we have the 1 Side-Friendly Omega, and the most obvious monster to ever grace a deck, Draco Berserker of the Tenny. You guys are wondering, why? Why this card? It's actually a bottomless trap hole it's basically a bottomless trap hole on steroids. So if you guys have never seen this card before, and I've talked about it so many times, but if you guys are new to this channel, or if you guys are new to playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Draco Berserker of the Tenny is an 8-star. It is an 8-star Dark Worm Synchro with 3,000 attack, 0 defense, and it requires a tuner and 1 or more non-tuners. So it's pretty generic. And the effect reads: when your opponent activates a monster's effect as a quick effect, you can banish it. If this attacking card destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, this card gains attack equal to the destroyed monster's original attack, and it can make a second attack on a monster during this battle phase. You can only use each effect once per turn. So, like I said, it's Bottomless Trap Hole, Cyber Twin Dragon, and it gains extra attack. And the attack gain is permanent. Just like Silent Swordsman, which is absolutely insane. So this card can actually work well against pretty much any deck that has graveyard effects, which could be Dark World, could be Paleo Frogs, which I know that in which I know that from what I've seen on social media, apparently on Master Duel they've actually banned Totally Awesome, which is kind of crazy. But basically any deck that is graveyard reliant, Draco can just banish all the monsters and just pop off from there, which is pretty cool. For the fusions, we've got obviously the one Guilty Gearfried and the Arcana Knight Joker, and then the Waken the Dragon target is actually a funny one. But what's even more crazy is that it's also a Super Poly target as well. But you guys are wondering, what is that? What is that monster? It is Invoked Makaba. Yeah, crazy enough, it doesn't have any special summon. I can't speak. It does not have any summon restrictions. It's pretty nuts. So and the thing is that most of the monsters in the main deck are all lights. Jack's Knight, Queen's Knight, King's Knight, Triumph Joker, Joker's Knight, Bower, Silent Swordsman are all light attribute. The only 3 monsters in the main deck that are not light are Rose, Warrior of Revenge, and Ash Blossom, which are both fire, and Ghost Bell, which is an earth. And basically Makaba, he's a fucking he's an Omni Negate. So his effect reads once per turn, when a spell or trap or monster effect is activated as a quick effect, you can send the same type of monster card. You can send the same type of card from your hand to the grave, negate the activation, and banish that card. It's sort of like running a second Draco Berserker, but Makaba is so damn good. It is so broken. It's such a broken card, and if you were going up against Invoked, Super Poly is gonna be Super Poly is gonna be cracked against Invoked, which is insane. Moving on into the side deck, this is my preference, but of course too, you guys can use whatever whatever cards that you want in your side deck. But for my side deck, I've got the 2 copies of Gadarla, the Mystery Dust Kaiju, to combat against the Fluent Reese decks, because I know that they do run the wind barrier statue, so it's a pretty cool card to go up against them. We got 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, which is another one of the light monsters that I have in the deck. But Ogre paired off with the Ash and the Bell, you got quite the unholy trinity, I guess you could say. Speaking of unholy trinities, we've got the one Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So what's cool about this is that you can actually link climb using none other than than pretty much any other any link monsters that they have. And what's also cool is that you can also use one of your opponent's monsters as well to summon this card, and it's a house. It's basically a much more darker version of Appaloosa, which is kind of crazy. So its effect reads. So its effect reads that you can also use one monster your opponent controls as material to link summon this card. If this card is link summoned, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. This link summon card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they target this card. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that special summons a monster from the graveyard, negate the activation. So not even a card like Monster Reborn would be able to get its effect off. So basically, Monster Reborn is just done. It's gone, gonzo. Then of course we have a very odd card in this deck, but it's pretty nuts. It is known as Unchained Abomination. You guys are wondering why this card? So it requires 2 or more monsters, including a link monster, which could be a Soul, Cerberus, Phoenix, whatever you may have, whatever links you may have that has already used up their effects. You summon Unchained Abomination, and then that's where its power comes into play. So its effect reads: if a card is on the field is destroyed by a card effect, except by this card, except during the damage step, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. When another monster is destroyed by battle, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. During the end phase, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. Basically, you're popping 3 cards in one turn. Not much else to say about that. It could be a fucking Raigeki, it could be a fucking Feather Duster, it could be whatever the fuck you want. This card is nuts. On a 3K body? Come on, really? It's pretty nuts. And then to round up the extra deck monsters, we got the one Decode Talker as a nice little like way to link climb into the Axis Code Talker, or even also into the Underworld Gods of the Closed World, or the Unchained Abomination as well, which is pretty nice. For the spells, there are only 3 in the side. We've got the second Avarice, and then the 2 Lightning Storm, which is a pretty nasty card in this deck. And then for the traps, we got 2 copies of Imperm, the second Waken the Dragon, just in case if you don't have a way to summon out Draco or Cypher Omega or any other monster you may have at your disposal. Then adding the second Waking the Dragon will really help out. And then of course we got the 2 Solemn Strike to round up the entire deck itself. But guys, that will do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this deck, because honestly the deck is insanely broken. Took me quite a while to get this deck updated, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hang on guys. Apparently, Nexus decided to log me out for some reason. There we go. There we go. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, this deck profile. If you guys did, and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, follow me on all my social media, including my Instagram, because I will be posting the deck on there. Links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.